to have some freedom in this region is to have access to seas, especially if we have several countries which are completely landlocked. For such countries as Hungary, Slovakia, and Czech Republic, having access to sea, it's sometimes the question if the economy could survive, as it was during the pandemic, where some supply chains were blocked, and they have problems with getting some goods, for example, through German ports, because there was too big demand.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Furnival. You are watching or listening to an OSW interview. Today I'm talking to Dr. Konrad Popławski, the coordinator of OSW's Connectivity and Regional Integration Project. We'll be discussing the Three Seas initiative. Hi, Konrad.
Hello.
So, we're going to discuss the Three Seas initiative. Let's start with the very, very basics. What are the Three Seas?
Three Seas initiative is a platform consisting of 12 EU member states. These 12 countries are countries which are located on the eastern flank. Those are basically Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Croatia, Slovenia, Austria, and Romania, and Bulgaria, if I'm correct. This is more or less 25% of EU surface, 20% of EU population, and 15% of EU GDP. And this forum was organized to help these countries to build north-south transport linkages, because the problem of these countries noticed already since 1990s was that actually the most infrastructural connections were established on the east-west axis. And this is not too good when the countries are just transit countries, the goods just flow, and there is not much. You need very good infrastructure, and you have not so much value added out of it.
So east-west meaning simply,
between,
Berlin,
let's
Brussels.
say, Russia, maybe China, and mostly Benelux, northern France, and Germany. This is how it was structured, and we have more ambitions. We don't want just to be transit countries. We want to create our own value here, economic value. And to have it, you need crossings actually, because if the transport corridors cross, on the crossings you have a lot of logistical companies building some depots, some logistical hubs. Later on, the manufacturing activities come there. This is actually how the largest cities were or industrial centers were established, on the very conducive crossings of important infrastructural connections. And second thing was diversification. So there was always conviction here that East is a special region where many wars, many strains between East and West were always inflicting some damages here. So it's good to have some kind of resistance, economic resistance, energy resistance, and to have it you need diversification. So especially Poland already for 10 years was trying to convince other states and the EU community to build up a vast and large network of gas and gas connections. And these actual actions were quite prophetic, because just when Poland finished its task in 2022, it turned out that we have invasion here in Europe, and we really fast need to use all this capacity not to have energy crisis in Europe, and not to have to bend to Putin to ask for some gas deliveries, or get frozen during the winter. So it shows actually some direction. We need some discussions and a lot of coordination, because all these eastern countries which I mentioned before are members of the EU, and you need a lot of coalition building in the EU. If you want to convince other partners and to conduct some projects, and Poland was quite accustomed to use V4 format, so consisting of Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland. But it is too small format. We actually need to engage all the eastern countries, which have a lot of things in common, because all these 12 member states, maybe apart from Austria, have some legacy of communism, have legacy of worse infrastructure connections, and therefore they still have to catch up with this problem, with these questions, if they want to build up a very modern economy where you really develop your own goods and services, and not just be a subcontractor for other bigger players.
So thank you very much for that answer. It was a very good and full answer. However, it was somewhat a politician's answer, because we haven't named the 3 seas. So these are the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, and the Adriatic Sea. And these countries all fit in between them. And all the other details you have very fully described. I could ask why this list of countries which are on those seas is not complete. For example, Sweden is not there, potentially Greece. Is it likely to expand, and why are these countries not there yet?
You were right to mention that actually these seas are also a very important component of 3 Seas initiative, because to have some freedom in this region is to have access to seas, especially if we have several countries which are completely landlocked. For such countries as Hungary, Slovakia, and Czech Republic, having access to sea, it's sometimes the question if the economy could survive, as it was during the pandemic, where some supply chains were blocked, and they have problems with getting some goods, for example, through German ports, because there was too big demand for such services. So, and we see right now, during the war, that Ukraine having no access to Black Sea, practically no access to Black Sea, is very prone to pressure from Russia, and its economy is getting ruined only through this economic blackmailing and blocking the Black Sea. So actually, good connections to sea are connections of freedom, of development. Without that, you cannot go further. This is a very important factor.
Right. Could I ask about Ukraine? Because there are 12 members in the 3 Seas initiative, but Ukraine has a status as an external member. Could you explain that for us?
Yeah,
please?
we are coming back to your question about the composition of 3 Seas initiative. So basically, we need to somehow structure this coalition, and it seems that because all the 12 members of 3 Seas, apart from Austria, but Austria is located in Central Europe, so has also some meaning, are middle-income countries. So it's easier to find some common denominator for such middle-income countries. But 3 Seas initiative is a very open formula. We have also countries which are such observers, have observer status like Germany, European Commission, or the United States. And we have also associate members like Ukraine, probably Moldova, and some Balkan states could follow that. And it's very highly probable that during this summit, Greece will become a member of 3 Seas initiative, also thanks to its very important strategic location. It's maybe not this original seas composition, because Greece is not basically Adriatic, Baltic, Adriatic, or Black Sea, but this access to Mediterranean Sea is also getting even more important, especially as we have huge problems on the Black Sea because of Russia policy, aggressive policy.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to ask a little about, so you say it could expand to include Greece soon. What's the process for joining, and in fact, how did the initiative begin? What's its formal status?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so initiative began in 2016. We have at that time the summit in Dubrovnik. It was initiated by Polish and Croatian governments, actually not governments but presidents, and it was very strongly supported by the administration of President Trump. And actually,
he attended one of the summits.
He attended one of the summits, the one in Warsaw, I guess 1 or 2 years later. And actually, the idea was also a continuation of Polish analytical thinkers and thought. I would say that this north-south connections, it's very important to have this more fairer growth in Europe. That we need. This is a crucial backbone to engage Eastern Europe in the EU, not only as a member state but also as integral economic value creator. So such engine, we could say. If we develop it well, we will have not just West engine, but we have also East engine of this plane, as we can call the EU, and it will be better. And then several institutions were developed. The Trisis Fund was created, which is not very vast, but it helps to fund some investments which could be interesting from the region for the purposes of the regional development.
For example?
For example, there is problem, for example, that EU funds, those EU funds, they are used to fund infrastructure. But to have it's not enough to have good infrastructure. You need also, for example, but we also need some wagons, and in the EU there is problem with having them. So, for example, the fund bought some shares in the wagon producer to build it. And then there should be enough of such equipment to operate I hope once a vast network of railways in the Central Europe. So very often you need some such minor projects and not so much money to fulfill those needs. But it's not enough. We need also bigger projects, and Trisis was important factor to coordinate the countries, the member states, to request for some important infrastructural linkages, which we think that serve the region well. And a very good example of it is Via Carpathia. So it's actually the first infrastructure project in EU which was integrally developed and invented here in Central Europe. So the Via Carpathia goes from Baltic states through Poland, then southwards until Greece. So this is also very important connections. And this is
there a timeline for the implementation of the Via Carpathia?
Actually, until 2025, almost full Via Carpathia should be done. I'm not sure about Romanian part. There could be something left, but generally, the countries are building it, and in many of them it's almost complete. In Hungary, as I remember, it's already completed.
To step back, So I asked what the process would be for Greece to join. I suppose I have a follow-up question with that. What's the structure? Is it a very flat hierarchy, or is there a Three Seas Initiative president, for example?
It's very open structure. You have basically summits. Every year you have summit of presidents and some business summits also. And then during this summit, some organizational upgrades are done. For example, the fund was once created. On the other hand, some projects were selected. But we know after these 7-8 years of functioning that we need also more this technical aspect for forums. So we need also not only commission this project to be done, but we also need some forums to talk about very specific issues. So let's say if we have some, as for example in this Via Carpathia, it's not enough to meet once in a year
with the heads of state to discuss
these things, but you need also working groups where you can discuss very specific details more regularly. And I hope we will see during this summit some development in this direction. So this is how is it going, and we see that with time governments are getting more to say, because the problem of original structure is that it was presidential structure, and presidents have very different role in every EU countries. In some countries they play just very ceremonial role. In some they have political power. So they are good to show some strategic direction, but we need also more government support to actually enforce these agreements.
So you've explained very well why the project would be important. You've explained very well what the goals and the general direction is. But I do need to ask, you hear many people say that a lot of the energy has left the project. So you mentioned the US president attended one summit, the European Parliament president attended another summit. But recently it's lacked a certain enthusiasm. There is a summit about to start now in Romania. Is there a way to inject some more energy back into this project?
Yeah, right. We see that as every institutions after 7 or 8 years, we need some new drivers, because otherwise it could fade. And it's the same with the Three Seas initiative. In my opinion, it's not enough to have these strategic guidelines, but we need more working on the grassroots. We need more working groups. We have many topics and questions where we really need coordinations and finding some coalition, because in such cases as the future of automobile industry, very crucial thing for Central Europe, or some public assistance or subsidies, or climate policy, you don't hear too much voice of Central Europe, although it's quite important actor, especially after Brexit, when the EU is very dominated by the largest member states. So actually there should be some updates in the structure. We should have some working groups. One idea to make it happen is to make some secretariats, several secretariats devoted to some sectoral issues. We could, for example, build one, create one secretariat for transport in, let's say, Warsaw, for automobile industry in Prague, for example, for ports in Slovenia, in Koper, or in some other place. I would see a lot of potential to develop, because I think for some time we learned how how the EU is functioning. But right now it's time that we present not only veto or block some initiatives which we don't like, but we also should take our burden and propose some positive agenda to propose our ideas how the community should develop further, especially as we have our unique qualities. For example, we have very high industrial production share. And for us, it's not. We cannot ignore the fact that, for example, we see that the EU becomes flooded with the Chinese goods. We had before Chinese some equipment, some machines, but right now we see even cars. Maybe in 2025, China will become net exporter of cars to Europe, which never happened before. So I think that Central Europe has a lot to offer, and the societies of Central Europe are not so used that everything is steady, and they see some political processes and could offer to this expertise to Western Europe, as we saw before. What is coming from the side of Russia, which was ignored for a very long time in the West. So we see very similar dangers on other fronts that the actual EU with some reforms could fade away.
Okay, so Konrad, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this OSW interview. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to keep up to date with all future content.